Hi, this is Tutor Ali from tutorali.com, and today I will be giving you an honest review of the PMI PBA exam and some tips to pass the exam in the first attempt. I passed my PMP exam in November 2012, and recently I passed my PMI PBA exam in April 2015. So what we are going to see here is what is the PMI PBA exam like, what materials you could use for the exam, what is the PMI PBA syllabus, PMI PBA question types to study and pass the exam in your first attempt, and finally your study plan. Let's get to the first slide where I'll talk about what is the PMI PBA exam like. First thing you should know that the PMI PBA exam is very easy if you are well prepared. If you are not prepared, you will even have problem finishing the exam on time. As we know, we do not have a PBA guide yet, so you won't be getting 100% questions from any particular book. So your business analysis experience is a must. 100% of the questions that are asked on your business analyst exam, they are based on scenarios. So unless you have experience as a business analyst, you would have a really tough time passing your exam. One thing we know is they have based the exam on the PMBOK guide. So knowledge of the PMBOK guide is a must. You have to know each and every term in the PMBOK guide, the processes that are there in the PMBOK guide. You have to know the glossary of terms from the PMBOK guide to be able to answer these questions. The PBA exam consists of 200 questions that need to be answered within 4 hours. So when I compare the PBA and the PMP exam, personally I thought that the PBA exam takes longer to complete than the PMP exam because every single question is a scenario-based question. Every single question is at least a paragraph long. So watching your time, being prepared is the key to complete your exam on time. The exam consists of 25 pretest questions which are not graded for your exam. They are mainly used for later versions for the exam. So even if you get these 25 questions wrong, it doesn't affect your score. Or even if you get these 25 questions correct, it still doesn't affect your score. The problem over here is you don't know which of those 200 questions is the 25 pretest questions. So I would suggest forget about the 25 pretest questions. Think about solving all the 200 questions and just pray that you get all the wrong answers, which are the pretest questions which you won't be graded on. The passing score is approximately 61 to 70%, but really no one knows because PMI doesn't publish how they grade the passing. Once you finish the exam, all they are going to show you if you are proficient, moderately proficient, or below proficient in your exam. If you are below proficient in those domains, then you would fail the exam. If you are moderately and proficient in your test results, then you will pass your exam. The questions are randomly generated from the database that consists of hundreds of questions, and there is no penalty for any wrong question, as in there's no negative marking. Now, depending on the domains, let's see the percentage of the questions that are asked in your exam. The needs assessment is 18%, of your exam. Planning domain is 22% of your exam. Analysis domain, which has the most questions, is 35% of your exam. Traceability and monitoring is 15%. And finally, evaluation is 10% of your exam. Now, let's get to the important part over here. What are the exam questions like? I keep repeating again and again. It is very long and wordy, more than the PMP exam. Each and every questions are a paragraph long, 100% scenario based. It does take a lot of time to read these questions, understand these questions, and finally pick the correct answer. One tip I give all my students is you gotta watch your time. Make sure you finish a minimum of 50 questions per hour, no matter what. So in 4 hours, you are going to finish 200 questions. Now let's see the type of the questions that were asked in the exam based on my experience. 10% questions were asked regarding acceptance criteria. What should the BA do when this happens? When the test passes the acceptance criteria, but the user or the customer says it doesn't meet the business requirement. So quite a few questions based on acceptance criteria. That you're not following the acceptance criteria, or the end user doesn't agree to this. What is the acceptance criteria? How you follow the acceptance criteria. So it's very important you know the acceptance criteria for acceptance of the requirements. Then 5% questions were based on baseline situations. Like mainly the BA is worried about the scope. So you have to manage the baseline, which is the scope baseline, and make sure that you are completing and providing the customer with everything on that baseline. Any deviation from the baseline have to be noted, and make sure you come back to the baseline. There's even some questions on cost baseline and the schedule knowledge area of the PMBOK guide. So there are 3 baselines. One is the scope baseline, cost baseline, and the schedule baseline. The BA is mostly worried about the scope baseline. But the exam, based on my experience, was a mix of BA and PM duties, where you're working as a project manager as well as doing the business and analyst work. 5% or so of the questions were related to the requirement traceability matrix, where you create the requirement traceability matrix. What is the requirement traceability for? How do you use the requirement traceability matrix to track and update the requirement status? How does the team use the requirement traceability matrix? So on and so forth. Then the next one we had is 5% questions were based on validating requirements and conducting user assurance testing. So before the project closes, you have to make sure that all the requirements are validated. All the requirements are checked against the acceptance criteria and made sure that they are complete according to the specifications. Then conducting user assurance testing. Now over here, this is where the quality assurance engineer comes in the picture. A lot of BAs don't do UAT, which is user assurance testing, but for the exam, as I said before, it is a mixed role exam where you could be working as a PM, as a BA, as a quality assurance engineer. So you have to know how to conduct the UAT, where once we have a solution, once the requirements are complete, once we are validating the requirements, before the end user approves it, you are going to help the end user do the assurance testing and catch any bugs that came from the assurance testing and make sure you fix those. For that, you have 5 questions based on quality assurance tools. To find out bugs, to find out quality problems in your product, you are going to use some tools like fishbone diagram, histogram, Pareto charts, flow charts, check sheets, inspections, audits, etc. So for all these tools, you have a total of 40 tools that are there in the PMI PBA syllabus, and you need to know each and every single tool and what they do and how to use those tools. 5% questions were asking you to identify the type of the requirement. Now, as a business analyst, you are working with all these requirement collections. Where are the requirements coming from? What are the different types of requirements? Is it a functional requirement? Is it a business requirement? Is it a non-functional requirement? Is it a quality requirement? So they will give you a requirement and they will tell you or ask you to identify what type of a requirement is it. 10% of the questions were very simple, and just common sense and your experience is all you need to answer those. But again, remember, these questions take time to read because each and every single question is a paragraph long. So watch your time. 15% questions that what's the first thing a BA should do in a particular scenario. This has to mostly deal when the change request comes from the customer. So when the change request comes from the customer, what is the first thing the BA should be doing? Should the BA just approve the change? Should it go to the change control board? Should the BA first document the change? Should the BA do an assessment, impact assessment for that change? So according to that, according to the scenario, you will be answering those questions. And there are quite a few questions on that. 15% questions, meaning they're close to 25-30 questions based on just what should the BA do in case the change request comes in. Monitoring requirements and managing changes to the requirement. So for this, you got to know the PMBOK chapter knowledge area for integration management. So just the BA experience for your exam is not enough. You have to know the PMBOK. You have to know these knowledge areas. Now, 10% questions were based on mixed PM, BA, and QA roles and their scenarios. So good knowledge again of the PMBOK is a must. So don't think the exam is just going to be on the BA questions. There are questions based on PM as well as the QA roles. 5% of the question were based on plan-driven methodology, which is the waterfall methodology, and the change-driven methodology, which is the agile methodology. Now, as a BA, depending on what type of organization you work and what is the methodology they follow, for the exam, you have to know both different types of methodology. One is plan-driven, where you use the waterfall methodology, and one is change-driven, where you use the agile methodology. For example, for the plan-driven methodology, you as a BA write use cases. And for a change-driven methodology, which is agile, you as a BA write user stories. So you should know how the agile methodology works, how Scrum works, and you should know how waterfall methodology works as well for your exam. 5% questions were based on the business case, statement of work, and the project charter. So you should know how to write a business case, how to write a statement of work, what does that include? What is a project charter? What does that include? 5% of the questions were based on identifying stakeholders. So this is from the stakeholder management knowledge area from your PMBOK. How do you identify these stakeholders? What techniques are you using to identify these stakeholders? How do you communicate with these stakeholders? Then we have 5% on validating the requirements, tools and techniques. Like to validate the requirements, what tools and techniques are you using? So you're creating models, prototyping, wireframes, you're doing the document analysis, you're doing inspection, you're doing desk checking, data modeling, walkthroughs, etc. So you should know all of these validating tools and techniques. Then we have decision-making techniques. As a BA, as a PM, you would be making decisions. So what are the different decision-making techniques that you should know for your exam? What is unanimity? What is plurality? What is the Delphi technique? What is poker planning? Remember, the exam is based on the plan-driven methodology, which is waterfall, as well as the change-driven methodology, which is agile. My personal experience, I experienced more questions on the change-driven methodology, which was agile. Then 5% questions on communication management, where you should know the communication management knowledge area from your PMBOK. So how do you communicate with the team? How do you communicate with the stakeholders? How do you communicate with the project manager, with the product owner, etc.? So once you concentrate your study on all these topics, majority of the questions will come from here. These percentages, they are more approximates. Okay, they can go more or they could go less. They are not fixed. They are just approximate up to my experience for the exam, what I thought. So once you're prepared with this, I'm pretty sure you would do really good in your exam. Now let's get to the materials to use for your PBA exam. Honestly, when I was preparing for the exam, I really didn't have much materials. The only material I could base my study on was the PMBOK guide. One thing I can say is if you are an active PMP holder, the PMI PBA exam is going to be very easy for you. All you might have to do is study for a week or two and just go take the exam, and you will pass the exam without any problems. But if you are not a PMP holder, then I would strongly suggest you have to spend anywhere from 2 to 3 months for your study. You have to master your PMBOK guide. You have to master all the 40 knowledge and skills, the tasks, and the domains. Unless you do that, you will not pass your exam. I see some training providers will give you a 4-day boot camp to pass your exam. It is not feasibly possible to pass your exam in 4 days of study. I would strongly suggest first read your PMBOK, master the PMBOK, and then you can think about taking any of the boot camps. Even I provide courses and live training for the PMP and the PBA exam. One of the courses that I provide is just a downloadable course where you are going to purchase the course from my website, download it, save it to your computer, and take your own sweet time. You can take 3 months, you can take 6 months, and finish your course. Once you finish your course, I take the assessment test and give you the 35-hour certificate that is required for your PMI PBA or PMP exam eligibility. If you like one-on-one personal attention, I do provide live training as well on weekdays and weekends. So if you would like that, please contact me and I would be glad to assist. So if you are using my course, the few things you have to use for your exam is, first of all, you are going to download my interactive course. The course is very detailed. It covers all the chapters from the PMBOK. It covers all your domains from your PBA exam. It covers all the 40 knowledge and skills and all the tasks that you are required to know for your PBA exam. The other tool that you would need, the material, is the PMBOK. You have to make sure you read it at least once. Don't think that the PMBOK guide is just for the PMP exam. Majority of the questions types that are going to come is going to be based on the PMBOK terms and glossary and processes. Then you can do my chapter reviews that I have for the PMBOK guide. You have to watch those at least 2 times. In the chapter reviews, I even complete close to 500 questions in a video format. And finally, you will take an assessment test that I provide for the PBA exam. Once you pass that assessment test of 20 questions, I will send out the training completion certificate, and then you can start applying, filling in the application for your PMP exam and submit the application. You also have 150 practice questions based on the PBA exam, which is multiple choice. Please make sure the materials you're using to prepare for the PBA exam has to be based on the PMBOK as well as the PBA syllabus. Just following the PBA syllabus for your exam is not enough. Just following the PMBOK guide is not enough. So your study should be a combination of both of these. Now, how to use the PBA course materials. And this is where I'm going to talk about my course and how to use my material. So firstly, I would like to say that these videos are just meant for you because you have purchased it and downloaded it. It's not for anyone else. These videos are copywritten and any form of misuse will be reported. As a PMI member, we all have to follow the code of ethics. If you find anyone distributing these videos, please write to me and I will personally take the action required. Our publication has been developed and reproduced with the permission of PMI, and we pay a lot of license fees for this publication. So please help us support and sustain so that we can keep offering this course at a low price. Right after successful purchase, you will instantly receive a link to download all of these lecture files to your computer. Once downloaded, you can copy it on your pen drive and transfer it to your other devices where you could play on your iPhone or your iPad or your Android phone. The best way to watch these videos in sequence is first open the video episode directory, which is provided in your downloads, and then you're going to follow it chapter by chapter. Once you've watched all the videos, you're going to take an assessment test. As we are a distance learning training provider, we are required by PMI to give you the certificate only after you pass the assessment test. So make sure after you watch the whole course, you go to the assessment test PDF file, click on the link, and take your assessment test. The assessment test has unlimited attempts, but if you've watched the whole course, you should pass it in the first go. Once you pass the assessment test, I will email the certificate, and then you are ready to fill in your application and send it to PMI. The slides in my videos are so detailed and interactive that you can always put me on mute and follow and read it yourself. Now let's get to the last slide that we have. This is where I explain, your study plan. So first thing you need to do is think about passing the PBA exam as a new project. As I said, it's not a one-day thing or a 4-day thing. It will take time if you are new to the PMI exams. If you have already taken the PMP, then I wouldn't worry about it at all. I would just spend a couple weeks and then take the test. But if you do not have a PMP certification, then I would suggest think about this PBA exam as a new project, which will take at least a couple months. The next thing you need to do is plan the scope as to what all to study for your PBA exam. What materials you're going to use. What all you need to study. So you have to plan how much you're going to study, because I see some students, they want to study from 10 different books. They want to do 2,000 questions, practice questions. They want to do anything and everything for the exam, and that's when they get so confused with all of these materials. So first plan what materials you are going to use for your exam. I would personally say just the PMBOK along with my lectures is more than enough to pass your exam. But it's up to you to select what more you need for your exam preparation. Plan how much time you're going to give for preparation and your exam date. So plan accordingly. How much time can you invest every day or every week? According to that, plan how much time you're going to use to prepare for your exam and when you want to take the exam. Personally, I would say if you don't have experience with the PMBOK, or if you don't have the PMP certification, give yourself at least 2 months. Plan how much money are you going to spend on your resources. So we have already planned the scope, planned the time. Now we have to plan the cost. How much money do you want to spend on your resources? Do you want to take a boot camp? Do you want to go for the downloadable course like I provide? Or do you want to take my live class? Or do you want to buy 10 different books, 10 different questions and answer set? So you have to plan how much you need to spend, or else you might just get overboard and end up spending a lot of money that you could save. Then plan the quality of the study. Plan how you are going to manage to study from all your resources. I would suggest if you could join a local study group. This helps rather than investing all your money in 10 different places. If you join a local study group, then you can share the notes, you can see what others are doing, you can get experiences from other students. You can join my LinkedIn chapter on the PMI PBA, talk to other students who have passed the exam, experience that. Finally, you can plan the risk involved in your study process. This is where you're going to look into what's the plan for the next 2 months that I'm going to prepare. What risk could happen in these 2 months? What if something happens? I should have a plan to mitigate that risk so that I make sure I complete and pass my exam in these 2 months. So this is a simple study plan. Make your own study plan and make sure that you stick to your study plan and follow through. So this is Tutor Ali. I'm here if you need any help. I'm just a call or an email away, and I wish you all the best. Thank you for watching.